And there it is. So we're live. So what's going on, everybody? Los here, coming at you with a season recap. And joining me, because I have no intro, and we'll jump into this, is JP, John, and that way, my brother.
I can point that one.
Thanks. It's always like which the opposite way.
Down or up? I can.
Yeah. So we're discussing WandaVision, right? Pretty much the biggest show on TV right now, especially for us nerds. This thing came on. I feel like it exploded out of the gate. I know there was some little bit of controversy, or not controversy, but some complaints about the pacing of the first couple of episodes. Me personally, I thought it was okay. I was on board from the very beginning. I know some people, it took them a little longer to kind of get into it, but I felt it was more like the casual fan. It took them a little longer to get into it, but if you're an actual comic reader, if this is what you love, you were into it from the beginning. Whether it was trash or not, you were probably going to watch all 9 episodes. So it didn't matter. But yeah, it was one of those things. But I didn't do reviews for each episode, but I just wanted to do a full recap at the end. And just fair warning, anybody who jumps in, this is definitely, and it has it on the title, definitely spoilers. So we're revealing everything. You had 2 days to watch this damn thing. If you didn't watch it by now, it was probably spoiled already. So if you went on any kind of social media, it was probably already out there. The Don Dada's in the house. So what's going on, Kavi? Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, spoiling everything. Exactly. So, but yeah, like I said, I have somewhat of a format. I have a few questions that I'm going to ask, just to get your opinions on certain things, and then we'll kind of just open it up. And again, it'll probably just go off the rails, and we'll just start talking about other stuff. But it's how we go. So one of the things that I wanted to do first, and these questions, I kind of jotted them down there in no particular order, because that's how I roll. Honestly, so what I would like to know is, I know it's tough, but what was your favorite scene from the season?
Oh, from the whole season?
Yeah. If you can narrow it down to that. I mean, I know each episode kind of had some scenes, but if there was one that really stood out and you were like, that's the one that kind of got me, or something like that, So if I could pick somebody, or if somebody wants to jump in first.
It's tricky because there's
John's a teacher, so
I'll jump right. I don't mind being called on. I will say there's emotional moments, and then there's like geek moments for me. And so obviously the number one geek moment was fake Quicksilver. That moment, I was like, yes, that's the coolest thing ever. I just nerded out big time as just a nerd. That reveal was wonderful. And they basically put Luke Skywalker in the middle of the season instead of putting him in the final 5 minutes of the episode of the last season. They put him right there, and I was like, okay, that is a crazy creative way to do that. And I really as a nerd, I just nerded out on that. Yeah. But emotionally, episode 8, where it's the previously on, had so many emotional moments that I thought were really beautifully handled. So emotionally, I'd say you could pick anything out of episode 8, and I'd probably pick it. But nerd wise, it was fake Pietro all the way.
Pietro,
yeah.
Pietro. That's great. Yeah, no, I could jump right in, and I think the last episode definitely Ship of Theseus. I'm a big philosophy fan, so just seeing someone be able to bring that in, and it be someone who's talking about this conscious body versus the physical body, and how that brought in, and how he's a being of logic, so he was able to fight himself that way. All that right there was just great. So yeah, definitely one that's going to stick with me, and the fact that you could bring that in there. But I think the scene where she was giving birth and the stork, like that whole like things are breaking down and the world is going crazy for the first time for me, was probably one of the biggest things that I enjoyed, because we were waiting for the wall to be broken, and then it does get broken later on when right before Agatha reveals herself. But like that started breaking things up for me. And then she just blasts Monica right through the wall. She's like, yep, this is happening. So all that, the tension was getting created so well around that part of the show. And I appreciated that.
Definitely.
So, yeah, I'm going to say, like, I'm going to build off of John saying, like, my favorite part of his nerd moment of Pietro showing up is still, though, Darcy going, he recast Pietro? like the just the meta of the whole, like the way they handled that, and like what everyone else is thinking, like the whole audience. I just love the way they handled that little moment. But to me, it's still like from a nerd comic book thing, the other thing that really stood out to me was when the glowing glowing crown tiara thing started, the way they did that to make that work for me. I thought that was fantastic too as a moment. But probably my favorite scene is John was talking about episode 8 when they flash back to her and him in the Avengers compound, and his line that everybody's talked about is kind of summing up the whole season in a lot of ways. Yeah. You know, what is grief other than love persevering, which of course everyone on the internet has like made their own like jokes and everything else out of already. But using that scene, because like the other two scenes, like the other flashback moments were, you know, the death of her parents and the getting the power from the Infinity Stone, but that was the more important moment, even though it, in many ways, than the other two, even though it was like a smaller moment. It was, that really worked for me. I love the way they did that.
Yeah, there was, I mean, again, you can pick so many memorable scenes from the show, you know, from, you know, nerding out, seeing that first glowing image of her and like kind of saying like, is that being or entity or whatever it is that kind of like not possessing her, but kind of like going into her or something like that? Or is that just showing her future or something like that? But seeing that silhouette of the Scarlet Witch, like it's coming, like finally they're gonna actually give her that title, and not just be Wanda Maximoff. So that was like pretty cool to see that nerd moment. But yeah, there was so many emotional like moments in it, you know, that getting more context of all the things that they spoke about, like in Age of Ultron and everything else, where they basically just gave you lines of dialogue, but they didn't actually give you any context with it, right? So you can hear it and you can see it and stuff like that, but it's not the same until you actually saw it. When, you know, she went back and you could kind of see the bomb hit, and, you know, it's like, yeah, you can mention it and say, you know, yeah, we were there for 2 days and stuff like that, and it's like, wow, that sounds like it sucks. But seeing it, you know, seeing the explosion happen and just like, oh shit, you knew it was coming, and you know, you see the parents disappear, everything goes away, and it's just you and your brother, and you're just like, you have that child moment where it's like, I just want this all to go away and be a dream. And she kind of like just reached out, and the way they kind of like added that context into it, and it's like, okay, it wasn't just a defective bomb. Maybe she did have something there. But it was just so many moments and stuff that were just great. The way they did it. And it was one of those things where you wouldn't expect the writing to be that good in a, you know, superhero TV show. And I think that's where a lot of people were like, kind of like doubting it, where it's like, oh, it can't be that serious and stuff like that. There's going to be just explosions and that's all it is. And it was not that. It was more serious, which for me, I think that was better because of the character, right? I mean, Wanda's character, her thing was really based on trauma, right? It was based on trauma. It was based on loss and depression, and that's where it really hit home. And it's not going to be that fast-paced thing. It needs to be slow. It needs to be developed, and they did such a good job with it. But you know, yeah, like I said, it was just, that was crazy. And going off of that, again, no particular order. You know, what was your overall what would be like your overall rating for the show, like the quality rating of the show, right? Just based on everything that they gave you. You know, again, just it's kind of tough for me because I know like we all love the show, but like really trying to like critique it and just be like, okay, what was there? Like, you know, obviously be like, oh no, it was a fucking 13 out of a 10 or whatever. You know what I mean?
27 out of 10.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like we all know we loved it. It was a great show, but obviously there's always things that you know maybe you could tweak here and there, stuff like that. But you know, what was your overall, you know, baseline of the show or rating that you want to give it? You know, even if you want to just do a 1 to 5 star rating or something like that.
That's tough.
Yeah. Are we 1 to 5 or 10?
I'll go this one first as well. I don't want to be the guy that goes first every time, but I'm fine. Yeah. So because I was asked, I think by Coach Vic today about it, because he was like, I was curious what you thought about it. Yeah. And I said, if it was out of 5, I would probably go all 5 and just say 5 out of 5 because it's a small scale. But if it was going to be out of 10, I'd probably say 9 out of 10. So, you know, I think it was remarkable for many of the reasons that you said, as far as doing a mainstream MCU TV series about grief and mental illness and depression. Like that's a ballsy move. Yeah. And to have it be as effective as it was and as clever as it was. And, you know, I think the way they built the series from like the classic TV show format and then to see it slowly unraveling to what was really underneath, I think it was a wonderful look at so many things. The history of television, the history of women in television, and the way women have been represented on television, all the way through, you know, postpartum depression and the challenges of being a mother and all of these things. And then you throw in Wanda's particular abilities and history. It was a really courageous show. And I think they also turned the tables on the finale has to have a guest appearance. The finale has to have some huge twist. And it was like, no, they had done the show was the twist. Yeah. The show itself was the big twist. The finale was the resolution. Like, how do you go on carrying the trauma, right? And it's a never-ending story. Fans of Wanda know that that's a never-ending story. Exactly. So that's the long-winded answer of if I, you know, 9 out of 10 or 5 out of 5, I think would be where I'm at, somewhere in that. Nice. It gets an A. It definitely gets an A.
That's funny. The teacher. Yeah, so many great points, and I'm like I agree with John on many. For me, I don't believe there's a 10 in anything. But like I always see things from the fan perspective and someone jumping in like, I got Disney Plus, I got nothing to do. How can I watch this? Right. So there's going to be someone who tries to fill in a lot of gaps that they probably wouldn't be able to. But there's other pieces, even when John brings up those elements that they talk about, then there's the other side, like this woman's crazy, get rid of her. Right. Like there's always this minimization that's on the other side. That is how society reacts to these things. And I guess like if you were to analyze it and be able to do that, it shows up. But there were so many hits in the small gems and nuances that you have to be a fan to just enjoy it and be like, oh, this is the perfect thing to watch on television. I love how John also brought up like how the Mandalorian played Luke Skywalker at the end. Like they needed that because they didn't know where else to go. They needed to play Boba because they didn't know where else to go. But when you see her put her hood on and walk out and say, you know what, they don't like me and I'm just going to have to deal with that. Yeah. Like that's how life has to be sometimes. Like you just have to keep it moving. So I really appreciated that. So if you're looking for like a slice of life, which you don't often hear about in most Marvel pieces, this is their first like entry to that. Like let's show the world in a different way. Yeah, superheroes exist, but there's the family, there's the things that's going on internally, and then the external factors. But then there's all the other great things. The commercials, I love them. Like those were smart. They were all really smart. The intros and to again the transition of history. Like I was waiting for some Family Matters in there. There was a few shows, some Saved by the Bell, because we got one of those twists. But they went for these bigger things. Like I didn't see any TGI Friday except for Full House, Uncle Jesse, like those pieces there. Yeah. But it was great. Like I'd watch it again just to try to pick up on other things because I'm watching Age of Ultron now, and there were some things that didn't line up. So I was like, but I still want to watch it again. So 8.5.
Yeah, nice.
So I was thinking 8.59 is where I was at. I probably lean more toward 9. Here was my I went in thinking because the concept and what we knew going in was okay, this is going to be weird and different, and I was and I was down for it because I felt like many of the Marvel movies are very cookie cutter superhero and they took a chance with this, and the writing was phenomenal. The acting was phenomenal. Elizabeth Olsen doesn't get nominated for something. It's yes. And the fact that it is really just when it comes down to it, this is not. Yeah, there was a battle at the end, but this is really about the battle within herself. This is about her dealing with her grief, and because she has these weird powers that she doesn't even fully understand. Her grief takes this form that affects everyone around her even more so than it normally would. But your grief always affects those around you. When you're dealing with, so you have that kind of effect. Now, hers was way more dramatic. But it was really, and John and I, when I was talking about this last week on my thing, we talked about that the finale was really just going to be about her letting him go. And ultimately, that's what the finale was. I mean, yeah, she had her little battle with Agatha and everything else, but it was really about her confronting what she was doing to the people of the town and having to realize, where she was at. And I just thought I've heard complaints about the show, oh, they didn't pay off this, and there were some threads, and none of those were important. They hit on everything that was important to really what the story they were telling. The rest of it was just all dressing for the story that was really just about her dealing with her grief, and I thought it was phenomenally well done. I really did. I thought they hit a home run, and yeah, I don't have many complaints. And the ones that are due are minor, and I'm kind of like Vic. It's is anything really a 10? I mean, to say something's perfect, it could have been. Obviously, there's points that could have been better, but it's close. It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, yeah. I mean, nothing is overall perfect. I mean, yeah. I mean, I would on that same scale be a 9 out of 10. I mean, obviously, the little things you can always tweak, but it's one of those things where it's you can always tweak something after the fact, right? It's easy to look at something and be oh, I would have did this, but it's okay, but if you were in the boardroom and you were laying everything out, would you have come up with that idea at the same time, right? No. It's seeing it, having the full display, and then being okay, maybe this would have worked, but being able to have that vision, beforehand, I think they did a phenomenal job when it came to that, right? They tied in so many things. They gave you so much context to some of the things that were previously left out in Age of Ultron, stuff like that. But I like the fact that I feel like the true villain of this story, of this series was depression. And, her dealing with her own inner demons and stuff like that and trying to overcome that. Yeah, we had, Hayward and you had Agatha and stuff like that. But ultimately, it was all her, right? This story was about Wanda. And if you read any of the stories that she has, it's always been traumatic, right? They've always put her through some nonsense in the books. Her life just sucks, right? I mean, it's just all the time, right? It's let's see how much, damage we could do to this lady who's, phenomenally strong. Let's see how much, damage we could do to her. So, see how much havoc she could wreak on the world. It's what the hell? Come on. But no, it was so well done. The acting was definitely well done. The writing was amazing. But yeah, I mean, again, overall, 9 out of 10. They just did a great job with it. But again, those little minor things that they could have, kind of tweaked on, I don't think it takes away from the show. And I know some people, even Chris kind of mentioned it, saying that the first couple of issues, the first couple of episodes, it was for a lot of people. And I think it was one of those things where some people didn't really get the TV aspect of it, or they just didn't watch the shows or whatever it is, or if you did watch the shows, you just didn't like them or whatever. And And again, I think it was because they took that chance, right? They went away from the original format of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they took this chance to tell the story. But when the payoff, in episode 8 is when they show like this is her life, right? I mean, everything that was good in her life always came when she was sitting at a TV watching these sitcoms, right? Sitting down with her family watching the sitcoms before everything just went to shit.
Which she would inevitably idolize and want to emulate, and of course couldn't possibly live up to the show. That's the whole point. Was like, I would love to live this life, and then when she gets a
perfect
chance,
life,
it's not what it really seems to be on a small screen when you're living it. It crumbles under the weight of reality. Right. And I think that was the beauty of doing it that way, was forcing people to like dig deeper and not just watch it on a surface level. You had to be able to like go a little bit. I love that concept.
Yeah.
That's why I say the nuance was great, because when you talk connected to the TV and the moments, like there was a war outside, her daddy was broke, couldn't sell no DVDs, but he still gave her an opportunity, and she was the voice in the house, and she felt power when she was watching those shows. She had like this Rolodex in her mind of all his DVDs and things. So like when you say that, I connected to that moment too.
Well, and I go back to like John talks about, like she set up this whole, like, I know there were some complaints about the first 3 episodes because it took a while. It was a slow burn to see what the heck was going on. Nobody understood what was going on. But just thinking about those, having seen the whole thing, like they worked so well. That very first episode where she set up this perfect little 50s sitcom, Dick Van Dyke, I Love Lucy. And then when he like starts to choke on that, if you think about that now, like she had complete control over everybody. And like, his wife is just sitting there going, stop it. She couldn't do anything. She couldn't like leave her role to help him. And Wanda finally had to like drop the facade and tell Vision to help him. Like, because otherwise he was literally going to die because trying to play the role that she had set up, this perfect world that doesn't like, and like there was moments like that throughout that I just thought they did a really good job of having her have to face reality at moments. Like she was trying to lose herself in this and she couldn't ultimately. And like, and they, because those worlds weren't perfect either. And she had to like deal with that as she was going through it. And I just thought it was really well done. I know there's a lot of talk in the chat about where we'll think about it later. I'll be hard pressed to see, like, not that I think Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be bad, but I feel like it's going to be more standard fare that we're used to. And this was so original in the concept that I think it's going to stand up well as we look back on it once we get more Disney shows. But we'll see.
This is going to be the Buffy the Vampire of Disney shows. That's what this is going to be.
This one was definitely more cerebral than your standard MCU fare, right? You're used to the explosions, you're used to all the massive fight scenes and all of the stuff, and every once in a while, you get the little bit of humor and you get these other things and some of these touching moments and stuff, but you never really get those very depressing moments when it's like, let's dig deep into what the hell's going on with this person, right? And everybody has some kind of trauma in their life, but when she was talking to Vision and she's sitting on the bed there and they had that little conversation and she's just like, listen, every single time, like it feels like just a wave crashing over me. I get up and I get knocked back down and I get up and I get knocked back down. She's like, I can't do it anymore. It's like, it's just, crippling me. And, to have that person there saying, no, it can't be like that all the time. Right. Again, coming from this, like, computer based logic, he's like, it can't be bad all the time, right? Like it can't be in my mind, because I'm computer, like I'm logic, like it can't just be all bad all the time. There has to be some good, and you can kind of see is like he was the only one to kind of like pull her out a little bit, and it's one of those things where now that one person, that one tiny little nugget that's there holding you back, he goes to, you're like, I'm done. That's it, and anybody can do that, right? And the thing is, she wasn't just anybody, right? Like she has these massive powers. So, for somebody else to lose it in real life, they crumble and the people around them, everybody suffers, right? But when she does it, like people suffer on a massive scale. So, and it just showed, but they took a very good, they took a big chance with it, but I think they did a very good job with it. They could have easily screwed this up, but I think they did a very good job writing. Everybody did just an amazing job. So leading on to my next question, and it kind of went on what JP kind of touched on a little bit. And who was your biggest acting surprise, right? Who kind of like, I know obviously Elizabeth Olsen and stuff like that, but like everybody did such an amazing job. But I think because it was going to be a superhero TV show, I think a lot of people didn't really feel like the acting was going to be up to par. Even though we had some like big names and stuff like that, but who was kind of like that person that kind of like stood out and was like, wow, like really kind of made you think like, this is a legitimate actor. Like, doesn't matter if this is just a Marvel show. So
I can go first this time because we made John go first the last time. I will start off with Elizabeth Olsen is a much better actress than I ever expected or thought she was. Like, she was fantastic. Catherine Hahn was what I expected. She's everything I've ever seen her in. She's been great. I'm like, I know there's some people talking about her a little over the top as the witch in the final episode, and I could see that a little bit. She was, but the things that I found like were surprising, at least to use that word, is the actress. I had never seen the actress that played Monica in anything before. I thought she did a phenomenal job, and then I just loved Jimmy and Darcy, like that interaction and that was something I wasn't expecting. When they said they were bringing Darcy back, I was like, really? Like, why are we going to? I thought they were delightful. They played their role so well. Like, those three to me were those two were the biggest surprise. Like, in terms of thing, I was happy with the actress playing Monica, but those two together and their scene stealing. To me, that was the biggest pleasant surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Oh, what do you got?
I'd go with Monica. Again, someone who was new, was fresh, and jumped right in. Also, one of the first characters we meet after the blip. So, like, seeing her get put into this world, and you're not even sure who she kind of is at first. So she played one role and then jumped into the other one and was able to spin it, right, and then show all that. I also love that she wasn't just a supporting character. Well, she was a key character, but she was this supporting role that was the one person who championed for Wanda. So that really pulled on me, right? Because everybody needs an ally, and the entire time when people were like, "No, blow Wanda up," Monica was like, we need to, no, I know what's going on. It's not the problem. It's bigger than that. Let's solve this. So that came through. And I had seen her in something recently, HBO Max, Charm City Kings. She plays like the mom in a show like that, in the movie. And that was a really good movie. So yeah, definitely Monica Rambeau for me.
I don't know that there's any good answers left. I mean, you guys nailed it, like top to bottom. I think. I can geek on Jimmy Woo all night. That guy is hilarious. Like, flourish. He takes the handcuffs off. Flourish. He even goes. The throwback to Paul Bettany's like magician episode. So good. Matt is here. What is up?
What's happening, Matt?
So yeah, Jimmy Woo. I could watch Jimmy Woo do magic tricks and break the ice. He's just great, and I think they've done a pretty good job across the MCU of taking sometimes a smaller character like that and like building them into something interesting. And so I thought, he was delightful and stole pretty much every moment that he was in. Big fans. And then I mean, I think the chat has mentioned Elizabeth Olsen a few times. Chris has mentioned her and getting the chance to really shine a ton, doing so many layers, doing so many different things, having so many things built into each line that she gives and each moment that she has. I think, she just they built the show around her fragile psychological state, and it just. She rose to that challenge beautifully.
Yeah, she made it work.
Yeah, there's definitely moments where you can see her acting chops on display, right? There was definitely a lot of those emotional moments, and they came out right. I mean, you can tell. I mean, there's times when you can see somebody overreaching and really trying to kind of like display this emotion, and it just comes off as fake, and you're like, you're overacting, right? And but it was just like so fluid, right? You can feel it, and there's like these little, when she's talking and doing certain things, these little hand gestures and these little like head nods, until there's certain things that she just did where it's like, wow, you wouldn't think that, but when most people talk, they do certain things, right? They're not just robotic, and they don't just stand there and just, come out. Mm-hmm. They have these hand gestures, and they have these head motions, and, you can kind of, again, she's acting with like her entire body, and you can kind of see it. So that came out, and, to give her that chance, that opportunity to kind of like rise to the occasion, which she did. But yeah, like you said, I mean, there was so many people, Jimmy and Darcy, their moments together were hilarious. Monica was awesome. Again, she's a relative newcomer. I think she had a few parts, or she was in a few episodes of like Mad Men, which most people don't even really remember her there either. But she got a chance to kind of like shine, and she did an amazing job and stuff. But yeah, it was just overall, Hayward even did a great job as being an asshole. That he pulled that off great, because every single episode, or every reaction video that I watched, everybody was like, can somebody punch this guy? Like, they were like, please, I can't stand this guy. I can't stand him. Like, everybody was like, I can't. And you have to be a pretty good actor for people, to be like, damn, I can't stand this dude. Like, he's really pissing me off. Like, he might be a great guy in real life, and people are like, I can't stand this dude. Like, somebody please beat the shit out of him. Like, so he overall was it was awesome. But yeah,
I loved Hayward until he tried to shoot the kids, and I was like, oh man, you tried to shoot the kids?
Yeah.
Seriously.
I will say Hayward was not from the acting standpoint. We got echo going somewhere, but not from the acting standpoint, just from like the sleazy government guy. That's been done so many times, even in like MCU. It was like, I don't know. I felt he was a little one note. Like that I felt like that was a weakness of the show. It's really that I would have liked to have gotten a little more from him, other than just sleazy ulterior motive government guy. Like, but other than that, but I mean, like his performance, he nailed it. It was just like, that's all it is again.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, they could have went a little deeper with him, but again, I think it was one of those things where they just kind of needed that, back channel, like bad guy, kind of like in the background, because obviously, Agatha had her ulterior motives, and like let's throw another little kink in the cog there and stuff like that, and we'll throw this guy in there because what's not a government a-hole to throw in there. You always have to have one, kind of stashed in there, because there's always one lurking around the corner. So we had to throw him in.
I think he's also a good person to pull you, or someone who isn't into breaking down a show as much. Like, okay, we have this person as the challenge, but if you continue to watch it and think about all the things we've discussed already, if someone's really paying attention to detail, they're going to start leaning in on what the real problem in the show is versus that. So I think that like helps people jump into a show. Like, oh yeah, here's the big baddie. Here's oh no, that's not really what's going on. And hopefully by episode 9, they're like, oh, that was different than I thought it'd be.
Yeah. So, so kind of going into that and kind of like talking about that is, some of the theories that were out there, right? There was a lot of, theories thrown out as the show progressed after each episode, because they kind of left on the cliffhangers. There was all these theories, right? Some were true. A lot of them were false. What's your take on the way they played that, right? Obviously, having the shows week by week was amazing, right? It gave people that time to kind of theorize and discuss that. But do you guys think like it did that like detract from the show, like all the theories and stuff that were coming out there? And do you think it was wise on Marvel's part to like kind of debunk most of them, right? So did that like kind of like add to the show or stuff like that, or do you think it kind of took away from it? So what do you guys think?
I think it all depends. Carlos and I went on a long trip last weekend, so we were able to talk about this in the car. But theories are just folks who want to fill in gaps instead of like really absorbing and hold on to something. Like, I want to know what's happening before you tell me what's happening, and that takes away from the experience. Like, how do you sit there? I'd rather watch the episode 3 or 4 times and see what I can get out of it than just come up with something to tie to something. But then there's all these other pieces, like there's the market and the speculation with books, which we saw a lot of books start flying, which doesn't bother me because if it's not in the dollar bin, I'm not going to buy it and try to flip it. So that's where I sit with that. But there were the things that I hoped happened. I think I started collecting in 2004, 2005. So House of M, Young Avengers, like Young Avengers is literally the first book I've ever bought for my collection, and I still have it. So I would have loved to see the boys stay around in some kind of hex that they lived in, created by her, self-sustaining, and then that move forward into finding Patriot and Iron Lad and knowing that we're gonna have Kang in Ant-Man 3. So all this tying in. But I could live with all the theories being broken, knowing that it was a great show.
Yeah, I agree. Like, the theories are fun. Like, people are having fun with it, but like none of that. Like, there's people like genuinely upset. I've seen people genuinely upset that their theory didn't come true, and it's like, oh, this is a hole in the show because my theory didn't come true. No, there's not a hole in the show because you were expecting something.
You ruined my spec, JP. It ruined my spec, and that means it's a shitty show.
That's not something Marvel wasn't ready to do yet. Like, I spent weeks talking about how I really thought Mephisto or Nightmare, somebody was going to be like working with Agatha, or there was going to be something that we might even not see him until a post-credit on the last episode, or maybe they just be like taking notice of Wanda at this point or something. But none of that was necessary. Like, it's fine to have fun with. I love the week-to-week thing because it did like prompt people in interest to think about and talk about it. But like Marvel told their show, it was really well done. And ultimately, like, it was actually a really small story and like just about her. And I think it works. It still set up a whole bunch of stuff. Like, you think about what we got out of this going forward. She's actually the Scarlet Witch. She's actually learning how to do magic, potentially not from a good source with the book that she has. We got Monica. We got,
White Vision is still out there.
Vision is back in a different form. We have a different form of Vision.
But he has all the memories and everything now.
Like,
so
the kids were introduced, and if you watch the second post-credit scene, they're not done with those 2 kids. No. Wiccan and Speed are not gone, like, permanently. I don't think. Like,
no, they're definitely coming back.
Trying to figure out, like, right now, and like, there's so many things and so many doors that open just from this little small story that, could they have done more? Yeah, but just because they didn't do any of that yet doesn't mean that to me, it was really well done, and that's what matters. They told a really well story. Yep. And the fact that, we got a lot of Easter eggs, and everybody was like, the fly is Mephisto, and the rabbit is Mephisto. None of that actually mattered. Yeah. We threw in a ton of Easter eggs, like Marvel Easter eggs, and names and that kind of stuff to like get people talking, but none of it mattered. And it doesn't matter if it's an Easter egg or actually leads to something. Like, people were confusing Easter eggs with things that actually were important. And like, to me, long as the story is well told, I don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I like how you said that. The rabbit is, the fly is. If the rabbit ate the fly, then who ate what? Like,
I honestly liked that most of the theories were debunked, right? Yeah. The writers of the show were trying to tell a certain story, right? It was definitely about, Wanda the whole time, right? This is her story, right? It was her grief and her pain, and they wanted to tell it from that aspect, right? And, everybody was anticipating like this big reveal of somebody, pulling the strings in the background. And it's like, it doesn't have to be somebody pulling the strings in the background, right? This is her story, right? She has enough grief and pain and enough power to cause all this, craziness going on. And, that attracts other, worldly beings, right? Agatha has been around for 400 years. She's going to notice, right? She, even when she was talking to her, she's like, oh, you came in contact with, an Infinity Stone. Of course she knew about Infinity Stone. She's been around for 400 years. Of course she knew about that. But, it was one of those things where I liked that they debunked a lot of these theories, right? And the fact that it was a week-to-week show, everybody had that time to kind of like, speculate and do this, and then it came crashing down, and like, oh shit, and then they took it in a completely different direction. Like, oh, well, that was pretty good. That's pretty good. It's like, all right, yeah, I see that, but that's the way it's supposed to be, right? I mean, they're telling their story, and you had people complaining before that, hey, the studio or whatever is getting in the way of writers and stuff like that. And then this is the time where Marvel's like, hey, we're going to let the writers run with this show. And it's like, hey, you know what? We're going to give you full, anonymity and just do whatever you want, right? Because the show was a little crazy and it was out there for people. And now people complain like, oh, they should have did it like this. What do you want? You want the studio to jump in and say this, or you want, like, come on, man, you can't have it both ways, right? But it was awesome that they definitely trolled a lot of people and, debunked a lot of things, which I thought was pretty cool. They definitely flexed on a lot of people, with the Evan Peters thing and stuff like that, having him, essentially not being anything. Maybe he could, maybe not, but it seems like he was just kind of like a one-off character. And that was just Marvel doing kind of like a little fan service and also just flexing and saying, hey, you know what? We could do this because we're Marvel. We bought these guys. And we'll do whatever the hell we want. And it's like,
and they're gonna throw a boner in wherever they want.
That was awesome. She was like that was boner.
I will say, so to your point, Los, I think, and it's not just true of where Marvel or Disney is at right now, but it's more true of just like where TV is at right now. This is definitely the era of, the showrunner, the creator of the television show, and it's going to be really challenging for fans not to say like, oh, I like this show a lot better than that show. Or, what is this saying about Disney as it is right now? The truth is, with a TV series, I think more so than the movies, they have the fingerprint of these creators on them in a huge, huge way. And so you're going to see dramatically different shows. Yeah. And people are going to want to say, oh, this Marvel's clearly taking a crapper because I hate this one show. And it's like, well, no, that's this one creator's fingerprint on what they want to do. So the creators of WandaVision had a really clear idea of what they wanted to do. They put their fingerprint on it, and I think it worked really, really well. Just like for some people, they're loving Mandalorian, but maybe when the Ahsoka gets her show and the people watch it, they're like, well, this is crap. Then there's going to be those people that say, well, Star Wars is all garbage right now. And it's like, well, no, because you can't compare them to each other as easily. And the model of what they did on network television in the Lost days versus HBO versus Netflix with their drop all the episodes at the same time versus what Disney's doing, which is stretching it out. You comparing them it's comparing McDonald's to, home cooking. It's like, you can't, like, everything has its purpose and place, and they're so different because of we are in an era of showrunners, and showrunners have a ton of power. So I think these showrunners were very effective. Does that give me hope for Winter Soldier and the Falcon? I mean, a little bit. Kevin Feige's masterminding all of this, but it's all dependent on that showrunner and that person and their mentality and what story they want to tell. Yeah. That's gonna be the difference maker. And I'm hopeful for all of it, but I'm also hopeful for the Snyder Cut, and I'm probably going to get hugely disappointed for that in 2 weeks.
Have hope for that? Why would you have hope for that?
Because I want more quality stuff. Yeah. Period. It doesn't mean that my hope is going to be rewarded, right? And so I as much as I'm not a Mandalorian fan, I'm hopeful that the next Star Wars show is something different that I will really love, and I'm not going to paint all of the shows with the same brush. And it's the same with people that are frustrated with WandaVision and now are like, I'm not going to watch any of these shows now. It's like, well, that's not how TV shows work anymore, in my eye, at least.
No. Oh yeah. 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 I think the rest of the shows going forward are going to be dramatically different, right?
Absolutely.
There was a reason why this was built this way, right? This was based on this character, right? And they wanted to show her trauma and that point that she got to, that breaking point, right? And it's tough to just, do that with a couple of lines of dialogue, right? To say why she's so broken. You need to show it. And the fact that they had this show specifically for her, that they can kind of go episode by episode and break it down and see that, was perfect. That was perfect for her, right? It was this, like closed little, community of just her and stuff like that. And you got to see that. And then you also, at the end, you got to see the broader picture of how that is going to play into the whole Marvel universe as to what happened, that little time frame of hers. But yeah, Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be a completely different thing. That, buddy cop, spy thriller, whatever, explosions and everything. It's going to be completely different, right? You can tell based on the characters, right? And again, I think it was one of those things where, because Wanda is not such a mainstream character, right? And a lot of people don't really know like her backstories and read a lot of her stories. It's tough for them to get into it and understand why this was, so much about her and stuff. And it's like, no, this was her life, right? It was crappy all the time. And to see that displayed on screen just for her was awesome. And it got, again, that more context for that character just made it that much better of a show and stuff. And again, the writing and acting made it that much better as well. But going forward, I think the rest of the shows are going to be, they're going to be pretty good too. They're going to be, Marvel quality, and I think they'll be okay. But they're just going to be completely different than this. So you can't, if you didn't like this show, don't, like John said, don't just paint that broad brush and be like, oh, they all suck. It's like, no, this was just this one show. That's going to be a completely different show. Loki's going to be a completely different show. It's like you can't, you can't put them all in that same category. Yes, they're all in the Marvel umbrella, but they're going to be different shows. So. I think, like, say, going forward, that's what people's mindset needs to be like. Hey, don't just do that broad stroke and they all suck because this one. And it's like you just can't do that. So.
No, I agree. I think one of the other big pieces is streaming versus like television or cable. Like you have a totally different audience and a different platform that allows you to experiment. So when we see a Lethal Weapon with costumes, this is what I've been calling Falcon and the Winter Soldier. When we get to see that, it's not going to be a buddy cop procedural. It's not going to be The Flash. It's not going to be Arrow, where I could watch the first 5 minutes, have the setup, and then come back at the 48-minute mark and then know what was already going to happen. Like that's WandaVision set us up for that not to happen. And if someone falls into that, then you're just going to lose ratings. You're going to lose stuff. But then you also, the ripple through the MCU, the rest of it's going to suffer, right? Like going into phase 4 and all these other pieces. Again, all those setups we talked about at the end, there's so many openings with the characters that went out, with the little things. Some of my specs were, I want to see Carol Danvers and Strange show up, and they're going to take the kids and he's going to help her. But then you get the little things with the scrolls, and then you see, was she astral projecting? Like, I don't know what she was doing, but was she? And how much time happened between that? So there's all those things that are happening that leave doors open. But I don't know. Green Arrow, Flash, I stopped watching those like midway through seasons. I was like, I'm over this because, Cisco's the best character and I'm tired of him too because his jokes are getting lame.
Yeah. When it gets predictable, I think that's when, people are just like, and that was the good thing about this show. It was not predictable, right? It was, again, all those theories and everything. And then you just got shot to shit and you're like, oh crap. Like, well, that took it to a different place. Like, shit. All right, let's see what's happening next. So like it did that for you, where it was just like, wow, that's not where I thought they were going to go with this. Okay, let's see where they take it. And
and releasing it the way they're doing one at a time is, I think, better for fans in the sense that things don't get spoiled as easily. Certainly people were spoiling individual episodes here and there, but when you drop an entire season and maybe I'm trying to watch one or two, I'm not binging it all in one weekend.
Yeah,
either you binge it all in one weekend or you're going to get spoiled on it because people are going to be dropping memes come Monday, right? And at least episode by episode, you could like, I'm going to skip social media for a couple of days. I'll watch the episode on Saturday and I'll be fine. Like Matt just watched the episode tonight. You skip social media for a couple of days. But if you want to watch an entire season and you can't spend the whole weekend, the first weekend, I think imagine if they had dropped The Mandalorian that way. I mean, people would be making Luke Skywalker memes come Monday. And if you hadn't watched it all, you'd have been pissed that it just was, all of it was spoiled. Yeah. And I think they dodged that bullet by dropping it the way they are.
Yeah. I definitely liked the dropping it every week because it gave you that that sense of, back in the day when, you would watch a show and it wasn't, you couldn't stream it or you couldn't do any of this shit. You had to wait that week to watch it. So you got a chance to, go to school, do whatever, talk to your friends about it, and kind of like, that anticipation buildup was there. And they harked on that because, again, in the show as well, that was her thing, right? It was all sitcoms. What were those sitcoms? They were week by week that you had to watch them, and you had that time to kind of interact. And it was one of those things where a lot of people, that's what they had in the past, right? You have those moments where you sat down with your entire family watching a show and stuff like that. And, it was one of those things where, like, TGI Friday or whatever, everybody would come around, or Saturday or whatever, and you would watch those shows as a family. And that doesn't really happen that much now because of the fact that you can, stream everything in a 6-hour period, just sit down and just binge the whole damn thing and say, okay, I'm gone. And you don't have that buildup and stuff like that. So I think that was pretty cool that they kind of brought it back to that. And it's like, you know what? No, we're going to build up that anticipation. You're going to talk about it for a week before you see it. We're going to drop it right at a cliffhanger, right when, you're like, oh man, I'm into it. And then all of a sudden it just drops. You're like, what the hell? That was not 28 minutes, you sons of bitches. That was 6 minutes. I counted. That was 6 minutes. Like, I need more. But that's what they did to you, right? Because you were so drawn into it. You're like, all right, I'm in. And they're like, oh man, it's over. Come on. Like, all right.
How many are there cursing that please stand by? Like, people just like hated that.
Yeah.
That was awesome. But yeah, like I said, I thought it was pretty good. And like I said, one of the things we touched on was like, what do you see going forward, right? As far as like the MCU goes, what they opened up the doors to, what would you like to see going forward? As far as like what we saw at the end, with her reading the Darkhold and all that stuff, and the kids, and obviously Doctor Strange 2 is coming out, next year or whatever. So we got a little bit of time. But do you think that potentially they might use some of the other movies or some of the other shows to kind of just like throw in little bits and pieces of this show, and then kind of like go forward and have this big blow up to Doctor Strange 2? So what are some of your thoughts going forward for this? So at the end of it,
I feel like, and I'll go quick because I know John's going to have to go here, so I'll give him a chance to answer. But like, I feel like they've really, what we're getting is they're setting up some different corners of the Marvel universe. Like before, we've all kind of worked in this one thing other than the Guardians, and then they kind of pulled them in with Thanos. But like everything else has been kind of this stories that were kind of interconnected, the characters on Earth, that kind of stuff. I feel like what we've set up, or what they're setting up here, is we're going to have, and even though they had Monica in this, they're setting up this Skrull Secret Invasion storyline with Monica and Captain Marvel and that kind of portion of the MCU. They're setting up this magic multiverse that's going to be this and Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and the Quantum Realm, or whatever the name of that one is. Like, I feel like that's going to be like another corner kind of storyline that they're going to be plugging. And then they're going to have kind of the cosmic one with Thor, Love and Thunder and Guardians. So they're going to have like these three disconnected sort of storylines that I assume they'll eventually pull back together in some way. But like, I feel like they are kind of like going to have movies that are telling three different kind of portions, or maybe more, of the story. Like, I do feel like they're kind of more dividing it into areas than they have in the past. Like, at least to me, that's what I got out of it. Even though like Monica was in this and she's going to go off to Captain Marvel, but I feel like there's going to be like a magic sort of the MCU, a cosmic, and the Skrull invasion thing that I think is going to also be a separate storyline. But that's just, yeah.
Wait, yeah, John, I know you got to jump out.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be the guy that like leaves the party early. But it's better than being the one that comes late like I usually am. Yeah, I think what I would love for this show to be, as far as if this could have a lasting, hey, I've got it up here, Chris, just for you, man. If I was going to have like, if I could dream of a lasting impact from this, I wish that the Marvel execs takeaway was, we can do like emotionally resonating stories and not worry about just blowing a bunch of stuff up each week. Like I would love it if that was their takeaway. That long term they say, you know what would be fun is if we really looked at telling a variety, using this as a springboard for a variety of like personal stories with a little bit of resonance. If they do that Hawkeye show and they decide to dive into a little bit of comedy or a little bit of the PTSD that he's dealing with, and find those little nuggets of human or humanity, I guess would be the better word. I think that would be the best result of something like this. Not being afraid to take those kind of risks instead of just monster of the week, blow stuff up.
Yeah, I touching on John's thing, I would definitely like to see more one-off series, right? Like, this is probably a one-off series, right? 9 episodes, it's done. I would like to see a lot of these little one-off series that give you more context to these characters, right? That you can't put in a movie, right? Because you don't want a movie 8 hours long, right? So there's a lot of things where it's mostly like dialogue and then they just move on. Whereas this, you can give that context to it, and you can have that show to give it, 6 episodes, 7 or 9 episodes, whatever it is, and you can do that and kind of dive into it and give those, that more human aspect to these characters and stuff like that. And that would be awesome because, again, it's just a one-off little thing, gives you more context. Okay, you're done. Let's move on. But it gives you more invested into these characters and stuff. And obviously this proves that it would work because, this was an amazing show, for characters that are not usually in the limelight, right? Wanda is not that big character, right? She's not Spider-Man. She's not, all these major, characters. As far as like, mainstream knows. But yeah, I thought it was great. And I think if they continue on with that, if they do take away from that, that would be awesome. But yeah.
I'm super excited.
I'm gonna bounce, guys. I'm sorry.
Thanks
for having me. Nice meeting you, Vic.
Nice meeting you, John. See you.
Take care, John. Thanks for coming on, brother.
I was gonna say I'm excited. First, Nick Fury in space, so that's gonna be fun. So let's knock that out the park. But I think one of the ones that's also going to be a great show to see if this continues to work is Loki, right? We went back in time. He has the Tesseract, and am I frozen? Who's frozen? Okay. But he's going to have the Tesseract, and I'm thinking, are we going back to 2012? And our Heimdall and Thor are going to be his Sam and Ziggy Quantum Leap style. So I really want to see what's going to happen there, especially if they can make all these ties to older things and make these references, because why not? Like, I love the meta in some of the television shows. So that's also what kept me in WandaVision.
I will say, to me, I'm looking forward to Loki more than Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Mostly because I think Loki's also going to take chances and do some different type of storytelling potentially. Whereas I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I think it could be fantastic. But I think it's going to be very much be a little bit of Captain America Winter Soldier, like spy, that very spy action movie buddy cop thing, that we're just going to get a different version of that. And it's something we've seen, whereas I think Loki is again going to be something new. But but that doesn't mean I don't think Falcon and the Winter Soldier could be fantastic, because it could be.
Yeah.
I
think it's going to be pretty good, but I think it's again, like, it's going to be completely different, right? It's going to do a 180 from what we just saw, right? It's probably not going to be this deep emotional kind of deal. It's going to be probably more comedy, more action, more explosion, stuff like that. But again, those are the characters, right? These are, military guys and stuff like that. So that's what probably they're going to do. They might throw in a little bit of emotion in there, but, with like Baron Zemo and stuff like that, and, him coming back. But, ultimately, I don't think it's going to be that. It's going to be a completely different show. Loki, again, is going to be another crazy ass show. It's going to be time travel. And, Tom Middleton is he's going to be awesome in it and stuff like that. It's just that, again, another, completely different show. But yeah, it's just, I think going forward, it's going to be a little crazy. It's going to be interesting to see how they start tying some of these things together, because I know it's out of order, right? I think this WandaVision was actually supposed to be like the fourth, thing in this, the way it was supposed to go. It was supposed to be fourth, but because of everything that happened, it became first. So it's going to be interesting to see how they reorganize things and tie everything together. So that'll be interesting, but it definitely left a lot of doors open, and there's still so many more questions to be answered. But I mean, I like where they went with this show. I think it was a completely different take on Marvel, and it definitely, it might have, kind of like had some people like question it, but I think it brought in a lot of people as well because it was different and it was more of that cerebral and that more, logical, and you had to really think about it. And not just like sit back and watch a bunch of shit explode. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, it was definitely dope. What's going on, Steve?
I hope when we watch Falcon and Winter Soldier that they just continue to dig at each other throughout every episode, because those were some of my favorite moments when they're on screen together. Just seeing Anthony Mack and lean up, I still hate you, like in Civil War, like some of my favorite moments.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's gonna be one of those things too, where they have like I think they're gonna have like some kind of like mutual respect for each other. But they're still gonna have those moments where like
they're not gonna admit it.
Yeah, it's like I still don't like you. I still don't like you.
They're not gonna like allow the other to know that they like.
Yeah. Like can you move your seat up? No, I hate you. Like I hate you. But yeah. But I think Marvel is definitely they're back. A lot of people were waiting for this. A lot of people were pissed off with, Black Widow being pushed out so many times. I think it didn't sit well with a lot of people. And, I think this kind of helped alleviate some of that, right? It brought some people back because I know a lot of people are like, oh, come on, man. And then this show came on and I think it was like, all right, it generated some buzz and it kind of got people away from like, when's Black Widow coming out? When's Black Widow coming out? And people were just like talking about this. I didn't hear anything about the Black Widow movie. It was basically just this theory after theory. And so that just goes to show you that, they were on the right track with this. It kind of, distracted from all the other nonsense of the movies and stuff like that taken away. So for a TV show to do that, I think that was pretty damn good.
No, it's funny. It's like the I want it now culture, right? Like, yeah, things were set up to be this way. But Disney Plus could have did this dirty and said, yeah, you're going to charge you $5 per episode if you want them all now. Like you're giving me Mulan or this other animated film that just came out, but over time and things like that. But I think they're doing the best they can, and they're going to release it still in an order that doesn't affect what they've already created over the last X amount of years. Like I can't even calculate that right now, but the MCU starts for me with Blade back in the 1990s. He could jump in at any point, so I'm ready for that.
Hey, coming.
Hey,
give me be interesting.
That was a damn Marvel movie. The title on the title screen when you watch it, it pops up and says Marvel. Like it's a Marvel movie. So yeah, it was crazy.
That's funny.
All right, so you got more questions, or are we just gonna?
You know what? I think that was it. I mean, I think that was pretty good. I think we summarized it. Wasn't too bad of a spoilery thing. But again, at some point, I think everybody pretty much seen this. But yeah, I mean, I think that was it. I mean, anybody else have any kind of closing statements they want to make? If not,
I am curious. What do you guys have a favorite episode?
Favorite episode.
I mean, I have one. And I'll be surprised. I'm curious if anybody has much different than it. But yeah.
Honestly, mine was probably episode 8. Right. It was the one that gave us the most context. It kind of went back and it really told you that story of like Wanda. It was like, I know the other episodes were great too. But that one gave you the most context, right? It's the one that it went back and it's like, okay, it made her relive all this, right? It wasn't just that she just rewatched it. She relived it, right? She forced her into that, right? It's like, it was like, no, you're going to go back into it. You're going to feel it. And it was just like, wow, that sucks. Like, it's like, Jesus, she went through this shit already once. Like, you're going to make her go through it again. It's like, yeah, yeah, you're gonna do this again because I want to see how you got this power. But yeah, that was probably the best episode for me, even though some people feel like it slowed down the pace of it because it was starting to ramp up. Then all of a sudden they kind of went back and it's like, okay, let's tell this. And now we're going to ramp up to the last episode. But I think it's one that we actually needed, right? We needed that context. And it was just that emotional, like jarring thing. Like, wow, all right, this sucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Jesus. And you can feel for Wanda and stuff like that. Like, wow, yeah, this sucks. Like, yeah, she trapped, 2,000 people or whatever in this town, but damn, that sucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I had that power too, like maybe if I lost it too, yeah, I'd do the same fucking thing. So
I think when you say that, it's funny. Yeah, she trapped some folks, but she actually made Westview a better place. Like, if you see it, the place was kind of janky. It was
run down.
When
she was driving through, everybody looked just like,
yeah, the homes in her neighborhood were abandoned, and Vision. I know you don't know much about realty and all this other stuff. You're a robot or a synthezoid, but
but
come on, man, get a better place.
Not in a good town.
Yeah.
Now you also have to think about though that like he picked this before the snap, so it's been like 5 years. So we don't know how like every town and like how things have been affected. Like how much it got run down because half the citizens were gone and now they're back and trying to pick up the pieces. So like there's a little bit of that, like should sort of look like that. I think Burke's crazy, but like it's clear he was looking for something different than what I was out of WandaVision. Yeah. But because I think it was one of the best things they've done because I think it was so different and it was so well done and it was so well acted and it was, this small story about her grief, and I loved it. But yeah, I also get why it's not up for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like the blip idea, but then it's Jersey, so I just feel a certain way about Jersey. Yeah, but to answer the question, like best episode, somewhere in between the end of episode 2 and episode 3, as I mentioned earlier, like just all the stuff that's starting to hit, it comes back in color. It wasn't as cheeky like the comedy with the bubble gum and the stuck in the mechanism and all that.
Oh yeah,
that if any part of the show was going to lose me, it was episode 2, and I was like, oh yeah. But then it came back. But there was that magical moment at the end, right before the 8-minute credit scene that I had to watch every time because I was waiting for scenes to happen. Yeah, the 8 different languages and folks that were working on the show. But yeah, episode 3. Because so many things hit, and then the ending where again Monica just gets shot through, and then everyone's there, and we're like, "Oh, what's going to happen now?" Because we didn't see a lot of that at the beginning.
Yeah, that was those. You can say that. You can even say like episode 4 caught a lot of people too because it gave you that flip side of what was happening between the first 3 episodes, and now episode 4 was like, okay, this is what was happening inside the Hex. This is what was happening outside the Hex when all that crap was going on. And they kind of did the correlation of like Jimmy talking into the speaker and all that stuff. And, that was like, really cool that they, did that. And, but just the way they paced it. I mean, I thought I enjoyed the pacing of it. I know some people thought it was a little slow or whatever. And that was some of the complaints that people were having, like, oh, it's too slow. There's not enough explosions and all that. And it's, if you went into this show with that mindset, thinking that that's the way this show was going to be, then you weren't going to like it, right? You had to go into this knowing that it was going to be something completely different. It was going to be on next level, and it was going to be way more emotional than there was going to be more explosions, right? And I think that's what kind of like threw some people off because they were expecting that typical MCU thing, and then they were just like, "What the hell is this?" Like, yeah, this was something you actually had to think about, like. Yeah. Sorry, like it wasn't a fucking Michael Bay, type of thing where it just blows stuff up. You had to actually think about this, and I like that. I enjoyed that. It was a different pace, and so. But to each his own, right? People are gonna like it, they're not gonna like it. But I think on a grand scale, overall, I think most people enjoyed it to a certain level. Some people more than others, but I think most people enjoyed it, and hopefully Marvel sees that and takes that and kind of like what John was saying, do more with that, and hopefully they take that away from it.
I'd love to
take more chances.
Yeah, try things.
Definitely.
And like they're making billions of dollars off some of these movies. Try some stuff. Be open, like to storytelling and different ways to do it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So yeah, we're over that 1 hour mark, and if people want to go do some other things, but thanks JP for joining me. Vic, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it. John was here for a little bit, so I definitely appreciate that. But before we go, JP, you have anything going on coming up that you want to just?
I will probably be doing my usual Sunday stuff tomorrow. Cash or Trash and my whatever show. And then Monday, is it in here? It's not in here. We got Gotham City Chronicles back on Comic Books NYC's channel on Monday night. We're doing Golden Age Batman. We're reading Tech 27 through 33, and then 38, First Robin, and then Batman 1. So first Joker and Catwoman. So we're doing a Golden Age Batman for our Gotham City Chronicles on Monday.
Nice.
And then Thursday, Indie Show is back. Have you read yet?
Oh, yeah, no, I need to.
I need to send my reminder, is what you're telling me. I need to send my reminder to everybody.
There you go. Nice. Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for that. That's been a good read.
I think I read the first 5 issues of that, and I thought it was amazing. But then I lost whatever trade someone gave me, and I didn't want to tell the person. So then I felt bad about going to buy them myself since I had to pay him for them. So yeah.
Vic, what you got, man? You got anything going on?
I totally forgot that I was making YouTube videos or had Instagram for a while there.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so it was great just being here and enjoying y'all. I definitely have subscribed to most of the folks I've seen on Los's channels, and I'm glad to get in and see some of that, be part of these conversations. But when it pops up, it will. I was trying to do segments every Sunday. I was trying to go out and spend $20 to see what I could flip or some good finds that I could get, and then see what was happening there, or some unboxings. But CGC isn't sending me anything back fast enough, so I have no content there. So I'm just going to start making fake videos with other slabs I buy. So no, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, just look out. Be Unbreakable on Instagram and on YouTube. And my motto is, sure, I sell comic books, but I sell them so the other ones are free for me. So that's what I do.
There you go.
But yeah, I appreciate the time. Thanks, Los.
Yes, sir. And thanks for everybody stopping in the chat, man. I appreciate it. The chat's always great. They always have their comments, so I definitely appreciate everybody who stops in for any amount of time. You're here for 30 seconds or you're here for the entire time. So I definitely appreciate it, and I'll talk to you guys later. All right, peace.
See ya.